Well, I'm Dr. Sandy Vanoy. I'm the Associate Dean for Graduate Programs and Research here in the College of Business. In 2011, the Walker College instituted a research grants program designed to provide financial support to our faculty who wish to engage in new research projects. The research grants are funded by the Walker College's Dean's Club, the annual giving society created to enhance the student and faculty experience in our college. To date, the research grants program has provided close to $30,000 in financial support to our faculty. Today you'll hear from 4 faculty members describing their research projects that were funded by the Dean's Club Grants Research Program.
Rocky Knob Park is a mountain bike park that's east of Boone, North Carolina, and it includes about 8 miles of trail, and it seems to be heavily visited these days. But a few years ago, when they were building the trail, it began with 1.5 or 3 miles, and I was teaching my benefit cost analysis class, which is a senior level economics class, and it also has MBA students who are taking it for graduate credit in that course. And as part of that course, we always take on a community-based project, and I thought this would be a good one at the time because here was a government project that was just getting going. They were spending government money, and it was uncertain what the benefits of the project was going to be. And so there was a lot of questions around town and with the government agencies about whether they were spending the money wisely. We decided to collect some data at Rocky Knob Park, and so an army of students would go out to the park at peak mountain biking times, and they would just simply ask for name or ask for email addresses from the mountain bikers, and we would direct them to an internet survey. The main part of the survey that we used was we asked people questions about how many mountain bike trips are you taking now with 1.5 or 3 miles of trail, depending on when they answer the questions, and how many trips do you think you will take when the trails are completed with 8 miles of trails. The idea is that from an economic standpoint, when the quality of product increases, then demand for the product increases. And so consistent with that theory, people said that they would take more mountain bike trips to the park when the trail was complete, when the 8 miles of trail was completed. The amount of money that people spend when they come from out of town and spend the night for a short vacation that has a primary purpose of riding the trails around here. And so we estimated that the economic impact of Rocky Knob Park when it was completed would go from about 2.7 million to 6.6 million annually, which is a lot of money. And people look at that number and scratch their head and say, wow, that's great, but is it really going to happen? Key comparison there is to look at what's the geeky word is stated preference data, what people say they would do in a different situation, against reveal preference data. Reveal preference is what people actually do. A lot of times in economics and marketing and other disciplines, you find that the stated preference data, when people forecast what they're going to do, they tend to have good intentions, or they may not pay as much attention to the constraints on their time or money that they actually have in the real situation. And so you end up with a result that's known as hypothetical bias, that people will say that they'll do more than they actually do. We did find this hypothetical bias result, and we were able to scale our results down based on the follow-up survey. So we can conclude, I think, pretty persuasively that the annual economic impact of Rocky Knob Park is about 2.8 million. And we also did a benefit cost analysis looking at the recreation benefits of the park and the money that was actually spent. And we found that the present value of net benefits is about $2.6 million. So if the government is trying to figure out if this was a good investment, both types of analyses suggest that it was. So I think this illustrates that research is important in the College of Business. The College of Business has taken the funding from the Dean's Club, and they recognize that a lot of research in the college could just use a little bit extra money to push it over the edge, to get it to a higher ranked journal, or to involve students, or to extend the results in directions that you don't expect when you start a project. And the Dean's Club Research Grant Program is just a wonderful part of the research experience at Appalachian. And when I do this sort of project in my class, it helps students see how the stuff that they learn in the classroom can actually be used in the real world.
I actually had a master's student who was interested in sustainability, and I was talking to IT service director, and he mentioned that they had these little eco buttons. The eco buttons are just a USB device that plugs into your computer, and you click it on and off whenever you leave your computer. And so in that way, it conserves energy. It puts it into a deeper sleep state than a computer would normally go into. The total potential annual savings are $122,000. I think that if we use these kinds of things, if we put these kinds of things in place, if we make people more aware, and I think that's the key. At home, if you save energy, you know you're saving it, because you get your bill at the end of the month and you say, oh my bill is down. At work, we don't see those. We don't see the utility bills. And so it's the onus is on the business to make their employees aware of what their energy savings efforts are actually achieving for the business.
My background is in studying catastrophic risk programs throughout the U.S. So this is I looked at Hurricane Andrew, some earthquakes, the Superstorm Sandy, Hurricane Katrina. The U.S. has a fairly disjointed, piecemeal approach. We ensure perils like flood through one program at the federal level, and then wind through other programs. It's very confusing for the consumer. In New Zealand, they had a series of catastrophic earthquakes starting in 2010 through 2011 in Christchurch, their second largest city, that basically devastated the area. And so my objective was to go down, learn about their program, because prior to this earthquake, they had an international reputation as having a very well thought out and organized model to handle disaster risk. So this presented the chance to look at what other countries do. How did it impact their resiliency? Do they have a sustainable community? And how did it work? When we look at it, what's a sustainable community? It's how resilient are you to a catastrophic event? Some sort of disasters happened. How were you able to recover and get your life back together? So in the U.S., we have agents that can help us in the process and be our advocates and make sure we have the right coverage and help us with the claim process. They buy theirs online over there primarily. And so there's a disconnect between the individual who owns their house and a call center which might be in Australia. They don't have that personal representation. I think in some regards we have a better model in the US because we do have strong leadership. If you look what's happening now after Sandy, they're having congressional hearings over the handling of some of those claims. And it's happening right away, and there's real action being taken. In New Zealand, the pace is much slower. So on a strength that we have in the U.S., which I think is much clearer now, is we do have elected officials who are accountable, and the press will hold them accountable, and they'll take more action. But what we don't have here is a uniform system like in New Zealand. So it's easier for consumers to buy the coverage, to be fully covered. We have a focus on sustainability in the university, in the college. And with the area that I've studied over the years, how does a community recover from a catastrophe and a disaster? We've always framed that as social resiliency, but that's part of sustainability. So I think that it's important that as a college, we have a broad view of sustainability to reflect the fact that we have a lot of catastrophic risk in North Carolina and South Carolina and in the U.S. And we need to make sure that our communities are able to recover and be resilient to disasters. And that's part of sustainability.
Like if you look at the 2008 crisis, we had a huge risk-taking behavior. We had irrationality in the market, and we see markets in the world that are collapsing. So these markets are driven by irrational moves, and the popular question even today that is stock market in bubble right now. So how do we have bubbles? We have irrational risk-taking behavior. So if we can explain these movements, then I think we're going to be more successful in the future for the upcoming, either for negative shocks or positive shocks. So we can model the movements in the markets. We see a lot of support, and both from the administration side, but the biggest support is of course coming from our students, because when you share your exciting research ideas and results, students are participating, they're paying attention, and they're asking some questions even we haven't thought about.